Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another book review. I got you going. I got me going. We're going together on a journey to find words that fit the situation. The book review is on Sherlock Holmes. The original illustrated Sherlock Holmes, originally illustrated by Sidney Paget. Now, there's 356 original illustrations. They're in this style, this style here. The collection of stories in this book were published in the magazine called The Strand from July 1891 to December 1892. And then there's another series from 1892 to 1893, and then there's actually a novelette in the middle of it called The Hound of Baskerville. I think I said that right. It's a pretty good book. It's obviously these are all short stories. It's a longer story. It's got chapters and chapters where each story in here is typically a chapter length. And then and then there's another from 1903 to 1905. Now, I know that these aren't all of the Sherlock Holmes stories, but there's a wide array. I mean, there's got to be like 20 in here. All pretty good collections. I would like to read a more chronological, without the idea that I'm reading it for the illustrations. The illustrations were cool, but they're just really nice pencil drawings. You kind of, the characters continue the same look and feel, but I'm not using my brain pictures more. Cool stories. The way Sherlock Holmes kind of sees things is very interesting. Though one thing about his character that gets really old very fast, because it's not portrayed in a great way, in a flattering way. With the pros, with all the good that he has, he's also kind of an ass. He's really pompous, very elitist. He's a big time elitist. I mean, maybe he's kind of earned this position because if you kind of see from his perspective, you'd kind of look around, having to explain yourself in such a way. Watson always says, and I'll finish that thought, trust me. Watson always says that after Sherlock describes how he got to his conclusion, after he describes it, it's just kind of like, well, okay. I mean, there's no magic involved. But Sherlock Holmes, he doesn't miss anything. Obviously, it's not just deduction, though. I bet all the stories surrounding Sherlock Holmes claims that it's a science of deduction. You have to make some steps. You have to understand enough about how everything reacts to each other, the relationship of shoes to ground. I mean, just the smallest of things. But all in all, a good story. It's from Watson's perspective. He's an interesting guy, Watson. I think he's got a man crush on Sherlock because he will drop anything that he's doing, and he's a professional doctor. He will set aside his family life. He'll just kind of go along with Sherlock. I think the current reimagining of Sherlock on the Sherlock or Holmes BBC has something going on. It's really cool with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, which is excellent. I think that reimagining is really nice, where these stories, they're a fun read, but they're quite formulaic. And by the end of this book or culmination of stories, I was pretty good at guessing what was going to go down. So I think I read these stories in a way that they weren't considered to be read. I think, The Strand's a periodical of, I don't know how often it came out. But, you would read, back then it would probably be really cool to read it. You would make sure to get the Strand, and you would read the little chapter or so of this story and be like, oh, that was a good story this week. Or like, it wasn't as good as a couple weeks ago, or like, oh, this is nice. But like, I read all these, one after another, not very quickly, but one after the other, relatively in a small period of time, and everything kind of seemed similar enough that I was able to be like, well, it's really not that person, but it is that person, or it actually is that person, but they are innocent of intent or something. I would recommend reading some Arthur Conan Doyle, and maybe reading them on a chronological order, just kind of from the beginning to end. There was a lot of references to stories that were very popular that for some reason weren't illustrated by this Sidney Paget guy. But I would recommend maybe reading it in a very chronological beginning to end order, or maybe like reading more. I know there's like 3 or 4 books that are novelettes, longer stories. I would suggest definitely checking those out. Pretty good though. I was excited for a long time to read this book, but I wasn't fond of lugging it around. It's a big hardback, huge collection of words that I'm glad I did it, but I'm glad I started on my next book, which happens to be called And Another Thing. It's Aeon. I don't know how to say this name. Aeon Colfer. Really fun book. It's kind of an additional book to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a part 6 of 3, by the wonderful Douglas Adams. I think it does the justice. I think it does justice to the stories of everyone in here. It kind of takes off where the other books left off in a classy way and continues it along. Any Hitchhiker's Guide fans, I'll talk about this more in the next book review. So, come and see me next time. All right, bye.